Hi, Rick Seymour here. Live younger longer. Boy, that's a bold statement to make unless you can back it up. And in fact, Shaklee Corporation can back it up. Bloomberg, about a year ago, had a headline that said Americans retiring later, dying sooner, and sicker in between. 12.5% of Americans 58 to 60 had an ADL limitation. That means difficulty walking across a room, dressing, bathing, eating, or getting in and out of bed. 58 to 60. 25% of Americans rated themselves in poor to fair health between 58 and 60. 11% already had some kind of dementia or other cognitive decline between 58 and 60. And 14% of nursing home residents are 31 to 64. Not 70 and 80 to 90, 14% 31 to 64. And 1 in 5 in their early 70s will still be working because they have to. Now compare those health statistics to Dean Smith at 92, who's still winning gold medals and setting world records in rowing. Steve Bennett at 66, still running ultra marathons, 25 miles and 4,700-foot elevation gain in the Colorado Mountains. Or me with my granddaughter, 163 miles on a tandem, with me doing 95% of the work for both of us. What makes those three people so much healthier than the average population? UC Berkeley School of Public Health for over 20 years has been doing what they call the National Health and Nutrition Examination Study, where they've looked at people who take a multivitamin, people who don't, and compared their health status. Now, first thing that came out of that was that in 2016, the average American under 65 had 12.7 prescriptions written per year, and in 2016, the average American over 65 had 23.9. Our owner went to UC Berkeley and said, would you consider taking a group of Shaklee people who have used nothing but Shaklee supplements for 20 years or more and put them in the study? They agreed to do it, but said, look, just know we're going to publish the results, whether they're good or bad, but we knew they'd be good. And in fact, they invited many other vitamin companies to participate. They all refused because none of them had the confidence that their products would really make any difference. The average age of that Shaklee group was 63, which means it should have fallen somewhere between these two groups in terms of number of prescriptions written per year, and yet the Shaklee group averaged 0.6, less than one prescription written per year compared to the rest of Americans. And in 2016, as a nation, we spent $425 billion on drugs. That's $1,350 for every man, woman, and child in this country. Now, based on these numbers, with Shaklee users using less than one a year, if we could just get everybody using Shaklee products, we'd save over $400 billion a year in healthcare costs. It's totally crazy when you think about it. But here's what came out of the study. The average age of the people taking no supplements was 53. People taking other brands was 58. And the Shaklee users 63. So we were 5 years older than people taking other brands of supplements, 10 years older than the no supplement group, and everything else being equal, you would have expected us to have a lot more health issues just because we are significantly older. But look at these numbers. Personal health assessment, the people who rated their health good to excellent, the no supplement group, only 49%, other brands of multis, 55%, the Shaklee users, 84%. But look at diabetes, heart attacks, etc. 2.9% of the Shaklee population versus 11.1 and 8.5. That's 4 times higher and almost 3 times higher. Heart attacks, 2.5% of the Shaklee population versus 7.6 and 4.4. That's triple and almost double. Congestive heart failure, 1.4 versus 2.8. That's double, and that's 1.5 times. And right down the list, stroke, coronary heart disease, emphysema, in every single case, the Shaklee population isn't a little bit healthier, they are a lot healthier. There are 2 and 3 and 4 times the numbers of people that have those health issues in the other 2 categories than the Shaklee group. And notice what I highlighted in yellow. For diabetes, heart attack, stroke, and coronary heart disease, people taking nothing had better health than people taking other brands of multivitamins. How can that be? Well, in a moment, I think you'll see how that can be. But that was the 20-year study. Let's go to 30 years. Tufts University picked it up and followed that same group of Shaklee people who have now been using nothing but Shaklee for 30 years or more. And here's the fascinating thing. They started tracking health status at about 30 because until 30, most of our bad habits don't catch up to us. We all think we're bulletproof, but then it starts to show up. And by the time we're 50, there's a big spike. And you'll notice from this graph that as people age, get into their 60s and 70s and 80s, people taking either no supplements or a multivitamin only have 30% prevalence of bad health outcomes. 30%. And the people who take multiple supplements of other brands besides Shaklee, 20% had adverse health outcomes. And in the Shaklee group, less than 10%. What that says is that in Shaklee, you're going to have more health, energy, longevity, and if you're taking other brands, you're twice as likely to have some bad health outcomes. And if you're taking nothing or just a multivitamin, you are 3 times more likely to have bad health outcomes. And along with that goes all the disease, the doctors, the pharmaceuticals, lots of money. I don't think that's what most people want as they age. And there is a way to avoid it because Shaklee, for over 60 years, has been about prevention. And if you prevent it, you don't have to cure it. And maybe the best part is that Shaklee is the only company in our industry with independent clinical proof that our products actually work over the long haul, based on both Landmark 1 and Landmark 2 studies done by UC Berkeley and Tufts. That's extraordinary when you think about it. But science doesn't stand still, and neither does Shaklee. The Nobel Prize winner in medicine in 2009 was Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn for her discovery of telomeres, the protective caps on the end of your chromosomes that slow down the aging process. The longer your telomeres, the slower you age. Well, Shaklee had been doing research on a product we call Vivix related to the same type of thing. Formed a collaboration with Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. She is now on our scientific advisory board, and in the clinical studies that she did, she discovered that an 80-year-old on Vivix for 5 years had the same telomere length as a healthy, non-smoking 41-year-old in San Francisco. That says 2 things. Number 1, it's never too late to start. She didn't start on Vivix until she was 75. And at 80, shorter telomeres than a non-smoking, healthy 41-year-old. It occurs to me that good nutrition and the right nutrition can make a huge difference in your health and in your aging. It also turns out that the omega index, how much omega they can detect in your cell walls, is one of the best predictors of heart disease that there is. And once your omega index gets to 6.5%, you reduce the risk of heart disease by 90%. And one of the things that came out of the Landmark 2 study was absolutely fascinating. It turns out that in the US and the European Union, most people fall below 4%. There's an intermediate area in there where your heart status starts to improve. In Japan, it's 8%. They have very little heart disease compared to North Americans. And the fascinating part is that in the Shaklee group, it turns out that less than 11 people out of those 220, whatever it was, fell below the 6%. 2/3 fell over 8%, which is the area where the Japanese have very little heart disease. And here's my wife, Aldana, clear over there on the right. She was at 11.2. I was at 9.6. And Dean Smith, our good friend at 92 years old, still winning medals, was at 9.62. He just edged me out. But the point is, if you can increase your omega index, you dramatically reduce the risk of heart disease. And as you can see by this chart, every single one of those lines is an individual in Shaklee. They have all dramatically reduced the risk of heart disease. But here's the interesting thing. People who can use anything they want choose Shaklee. Olympic athletes to date have won 144 medals powered by Shaklee. 80 gold, 43 silver, 21 bronze. In fact, since we started working with Olympians in 1980, if you counted Shaklee athletes as a country, we'd come in 10th in the world in medal winnings. That's crazy when you think about it. The Daedalus flight not only broke the human-powered flight record, but tripled the existing record using a product developed by Shaklee called Hydrate. Turns out that every single NASA mission since 1993 has used that same type of drink, Shaklee's Astro Aid to make sure that the astronauts are perfectly hydrated throughout the mission and after the mission. And just as a little aside, yes, I was a rocket scientist and I did help design that jet propelled backpack right there that they fly around in space in. Here's Commander Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly. Scott has commandeered or been in space longer than any other American at that point in time. Mark has commanded the space shuttle more often than anybody else, and neither one of them would consider going into space without their Shaklee. And here's Mark with his vitalizer floating right next to him. So the next time somebody tells you Shaklee's out of this world, believe me, it really is. But what is it that gets those results? Why is Shaklee so unique? Why is it so different? Let's start with the fact that we are beyond organic. We start with organic. That's just the starting point. But then we test for over 350 contaminants for every new botanical that comes into the Shaklee facilities. Why 350? Because that's how many are out there that you need to be concerned about. In fact, some of the most contaminated crops we've ever tested were raised organically. The farmers did everything they were supposed to do, but guess what? They have no control over pollutants in the water they irrigate the crops with. They have no control over air pollution that settles on their crops. Farmer up the valley sprays with pesticides and drifts on their crops. They can't control that. They do it right, but it's no guarantee of purity. Shaklee will absolutely guarantee the purity because we test for over 350 contaminants. The U.S. pharmacopoeia that the pharmaceutical companies follow only tests for a little over 100. We do more than 3 times that. And then we do over 100,000 quality control tests every year throughout the whole process to make sure that the potency that is supposed to be in that product is in that product. If it's on the label, it is in there. Compare that to the fact that the New York Attorney General filed a lawsuit against Walgreens, Walmart, Target, and GNC because over 80% of the products they randomly pulled off the shelf had none of the active ingredient in them that people were buying them for, and over 30% had fillers and contaminants that have no place in something you put in your mouth. That's the Shaklee difference. And we also guarantee the performance. To date, we have over 138 clinical studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals. That is more than the sum total of every other company in this industry to prove one thing, that our products are bioavailable, they get into your bloodstream and do what they're supposed to do. So they are pure, they are potent, they are safe, and they do what they're supposed to do. Compare that to this doctor-prescribed prenatal. A young lady in the Shaklee organization dropped her prenatals in a glass of water to see if they would even dissolve, if they'd even break down. And they didn't during the evening that she was watching them. She poured the water out of the cup, set it on the counter, and the next morning, those prenatals had eaten through the plastic cup. Now, here's my question to you. How much good do you think that is going to do either mom or the fetus if it'll eat a plastic cup and never breaks down? That's scary stuff when you think about it. So you got to ask yourself, well, is it worth it? Is Shaklee too expensive? Well, think about this. How many people do you know go through the drive-by at McDonald's every morning? An Egg McMuffin and hash browns, $4.69, 450 calories, 14 grams of fat. The one that really amazes me is a latte and a scone at Starbucks. $6.10, 650 calories, 29 grams of fat. Compare that to the Shaklee Essentials plan. $2.55, 170 calories and 3 grams of fat. Or our Vitalizing plan, which is absolutely amazing because Vitalizer was a consequence of the Landmark 1 study. They decided, let's figure out what all these crazy Shaklee people are taking that made them so darn healthy. They put it in one easy strip with 6 different supplements in it, and that's the Vitalizing plan for $5.33, 170 calories, and 3 grams of fat. A fabulous way to start your day. In fact, for all intents and purposes, that's been our breakfast for 44 years. Now, there's a little subset of nutrition we probably ought to focus on. Let me just ask you, if you had a cure for cancer, would you share it with every single person you knew? I'll bet you would. But guess what? There are 4 times as many people die from the consequences of obesity in this country than all forms of cancer combined. If we would solve that one problem, That would solve 80% of the budget that we spend on healthcare in this country today. And here's the issue. There are thousands of diet programs and products out there, and you can lose weight on every single one of them. They all work because malnutrition is a great weight loss program. But do you really want to end up skinny and sick, or would you rather be lean and healthy? And what Shaklee has created is an extraordinary weight management program that allows you to do just that. Here's a good friend of ours, Linda Bennett, showing her before and after picture. Yes, she's 70 pounds healthier, but more important than that, before she was on 17 prescriptions a day with an $800 a month copay. And today, she is on no medication. She feels great, has more energy, is saving that $800 a month that they were spending, and has kept it off for 6 years. Extraordinary products, extraordinary success. One of the other areas Shaklee has focused on over the years is skincare. And with the introduction of youth, with 8 patents on it, which is more than any other skincare product on the planet, these products are 100% natural, vegan, gluten-free, cruelty-free, non-comedogenic, dermatology tested, ophthalmologist tested, and that all sounds wonderful, but let me give you the bottom line. 100% of the women in the clinical studies were proven to have younger looking skin, and 2/3 actually shifted their skin age to a younger decade. And that wasn't some subjective opinion. They literally measured wrinkles, pore size, skin tone, firmness, sagging, radiance, hyperpigmentation, and skin texture. Fascinating results, extraordinary results, and you can have that in just 60 days. Another area that Shaklee has focused on for years is making sure we are the greenest corporation on the planet. We were the first company to ever be certified climate neutral with zero carbon footprint on the earth. We planted over 1 million trees around the world. And our Get Clean kit, right there in the middle, which will replace virtually everything you have in your bathroom and your laundry room and your kitchen, will replace over $3,400 of cleaning power from your grocery store. And in addition to the products being green, biodegradable, and safe, that mound of plastic will not go into the environment because you switched to Shaklee. So you have some options. You have products that can make you dramatically healthier and keep you young longer, and we have the clinical proof behind it. You have skincare that you can drop a decade off of your skin in 60 days. We have cleaning products that are safe and non-toxic and safe for you and your kids. And if you put all that together and you get as excited about them as other people do, you'll probably end up sharing them with others. But just know, every Shaklee product is 100% guaranteed. You risk nothing by trying any of these products. And that is an extraordinary guarantee. No questions asked. But if you were to go out and share them with other people, some other crazy stuff can happen too. What if you could replace a car payment by earning a free car through Shaklee? Jen Weigel, a young lady in our organization, is on her second Shaklee bonus car. In fact, she's qualified for 9 years of car payments, and she's only been in Shaklee 5 years. Down here is Dean Smith with his second Tesla, and Jessica Wurzbach in lower right-hand corner there, her first bonus car, and then their second was a tractor. Yes, Shaklee is really that accommodating. But wouldn't it be nice not to have a car payment? On top of that, you can earn luxury travel in extraordinary places around the world. Places like Athens and Mykonos, Paris, Kenya, all of these are places that Shaklee people have gone. And the best part is, once you build it, you can get paid for the rest of your life. It's what allowed me to go from being a rocket scientist to a Shaklee entrepreneur, to being semi-retired at the ripe old age of 38, and for the last 34 years, I've had a 6-figure income, semi-retired. I love what Ella Hagerman said. After 43 years in Shaklee and $23 million in income, I'm making retirement income at the rate of $3,000 a day. Shaklee's the greatest retirement plan in the world, unquote. And maybe the best part is it's generational wealth. You can pass whatever you build down to your kids and your grandkids. In fact, there are some Shaklee families with 5 generations who have benefited from something somebody started 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's an extraordinary opportunity to share extraordinary products and change people's lives in the process. And it's not just about your personal success, but in the process, you'll dramatically improve the health of hundreds, if not thousands of people that are desperately seeking solutions in their life. So I appreciate the fact that you've taken time to watch this. I hope you'll touch base with the person who shared it with you and really understand how Shaklee can make a difference in your life and the people that you care about. Thanks for joining me.